Today I'm sharing my top Italy train travel tips and walking you through the end-to-end process from booking your tickets to getting to the station, getting on board your train, arriving at the destination, and more. Andiamo and all aboard for episode 264 of the Untold Italy podcast.
Ciao a tutti and benvenuti to Untold Italy, the travel podcast where you go to the towns and villages, mountains and lakes, hills and coastlines of Bella Italia. Each week your host, Katy Clarke, takes you on a journey in search of magical landscapes, history, culture, wine, gelato, and of course, a whole lot of pasta. If you're dreaming of Italy and planning future adventures there, you've come to the right place.
Dreaming of arriving in Italy, strolling into a gelateria and ordering your gelato with confidence? If you've been learning Italian with language apps but still can't string a sentence together, it might be time to try another approach. My friend Michelle from Intrepid Italian offers a practical way to learn travel-ready Italian. Thanks to her unique 80-20 method, Michelle teaches you exactly what you need to know to connect with locals and have more authentic travel experiences. There's no getting bogged down in awkward phrases and unnecessary grammar. As an adult learner herself with Italian heritage, Michelle really knows how to bridge the gap between English and Italian. As Roma from London said, the learning methodology is great. I progressed much faster in the last 4 weeks than I ever did on my own or using other language apps. To find out more and claim your free Italian travel phrase guide, visit untolditaly.com/Italian or visit the link in the show notes. As a bonus, you'll also get an exclusive $20 coupon code to use on any of Michelle's online self-paced courses. So visit untolditaly.com/Italian and accelerate your Italian language journey today. Hi everyone, buongiorno, come stai? Here we are flying through the year, and before you know it, a large number of you will be landing in Italy ready for the adventure of a lifetime. I'm so thrilled for you all. And I'm really excited that you're going to be able to have us along with you in your pocket. And in case you missed it, we're weeks away from launching our new Untold Italy app. This is a huge project that brings together all our knowledge, tips and secrets in the one format, ready for you to plan and enjoy your time in Italy. You can sign up for updates via the link in our show notes or go to untolditaly.com/app so you're among the first to access the app and give us your feedback. I can't wait to hear what you think. Now, I could talk for ages about the app, but today we are going to have a chat about trains. So on with the show. Now, I'm someone who is a little bit obsessed by travel and, of course, travel in Italy. So I find the planning and preparation for each trip very exciting. But I do know that this isn't the case for everyone and that for many of our listeners, there is a little bit of anxiety, especially around traveling by train in Italy. So we know this because in our Italy travel planning Facebook community, which is free to join, by the way, and everyone is welcome, and also many of our trip planning and tour clients are quite nervous about train travel. So I wanted to do a quick episode about traveling by train to help anyone who isn't feeling so confident about this aspect of their trip to Italy. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that long-distance train travel is not so common in many of the places that we live. I think the longest journey I've done by train here in Australia was a few hours. And I know while there are some useful lines in the US and Canada, people generally prefer to fly. So no wonder there's a little bit of apprehension when considering rail travel in Italy. Before we begin on some really practical tips, I want to say that travelling by train in Italy and Europe is generally easy, efficient, relaxing and cost-effective. And it is by far my preferred way to travel between cities. I would choose a train over a plane any day of the week in Europe. On our most recent trip to Italy, we took the train from Rome to Bolzano, arriving right in the centre of the gateway to the Dolomites after a relaxing 5-hour journey from central Rome. There was no waiting in security lines or worrying about connections. We could walk around the train and stretch our legs. There was free Wi-Fi and large comfy seats. Now, I think if we wanted to fly, there would have taken another maybe 3 hours, as there are no direct flights, well, that I could find at that time anyway. And I think if there were flights, I suspect they'd be on one of those really small planes, which, if you've been listening to this for a while, you'll know I don't really do heights very well, and definitely not small planes. So on that train trip, everything went so smoothly, from booking the tickets to our station and the onboard experience. So I wanted to get you up to speed on travelling this way. And what I'm going to do is cover the train system, how to book, what to expect at the station and on board, and what to do if things go wrong. And you know what? They can and they do, thanks to strike action and other little annoyances that you have when you're travelling in Italy. That happens quite regularly, but not to worry, we have a plan for that too. Let's get started. And first up, I'm going to talk about Italy's train system. Italy, like most European countries, has an extensive train network of fast-speed intercity trains and also slower regional trains. So the fast-speed trains link the major cities: Rome, Florence, Venice, Milan, Naples, Bologna, Bari and Turin, and they may make stops at secondary cities like Verona, Bolzano and Salerno. Regional trains are slower and they connect cities and towns within the Italian regions. So, for example, Milan and Como and Naples and Sorrento. Some regions are better serviced than others by these regional train routes. And, I think generally the northern regions are very well connected. And my favourite is Liguria, where the train goes up and down the coast, linking the Cinque Terre and Portofino to Genoa and other beautiful, beautiful towns along that coastline. And really go have a look into that, because this is a top secret special place that I like to go, and it's sort of less visited by English speaking tourists. Now, somewhat surprisingly, Tuscany is pretty average in terms of train lines if you want to go into the countryside. And though it does connect well to Lucca, Pisa, Arezzo and Prato, those train links are okay. Some towns that you think might be really easy to get to by train aren't as well serviced. So Siena, for example, the train station is out of town, so you need to do a bus transfer to get into the historic centre, which is a bit of a pain because it chews up time that you don't want to spend. So, yeah, it's good to have a look into the train system and have a look at the train maps. We've got some really great resources on our website that we'll link to in the show notes that can help you with that. Now we've covered the train system in a little bit of detail. What I want to do now is talk about the train companies and how you go about booking your tickets. So the fast speed trains in Italy are run by two companies. One is Trenitalia Frecce service, which is the state-owned train service, and Italo, which is a private company. And they both do similar routes up and down the country, and it's just a different schedule and slightly different service, but they're pretty much the same, to be honest. You can go to each of their websites, which will give you, and look up schedules and prices and what have you. But I like to use a service like Omio or Trainline to research and book the tickets, because you're able to see both schedules in the one spot and compare the timing and the prices. Really, in terms of prices, they're very similar, so it's much of a muchness. And the thing is that the Italian websites are a little bit clunky. And, after all, I think what you have to remember is that they're basically set up to provide and serve Italian customers information and services. So, sometimes, I'm used to it now, but the Italian translations are pretty funny sometimes. And it's a little bit of a different mentality when it comes to online business. Now, services like Omio and Trainline have been really designed with an international audience in mind, so I just find it much easier to use those. And even the team in Italy that live there, they often use these services as well, rather than going into the ones directly. The thing is, you are going to pay a small booking fee when you use a service like Omio or Trainline, but I find this is okay for me because it's convenient and their sites are easier to use. And everything then is in the one spot. So you have all your tickets on their app, which is really easy to use as well. Lots of people prefer to book directly. I haven't really found a huge advantage apart from saving a few small dollars for doing that. But each to their own. I don't tell people how to do things, but I like to find the easy way. And, call me lazy or whatever, but I do like to find the easiest way of doing things. For the major cities, there are going to be generally more than one train station at each stop. So it's important to check which one that you need. So, for example, I've seen many instances of travellers getting off at Venice Mestre station instead of Venice Santa Lucia. This is really important because Mestre is on the mainland, while Santa Lucia is the main train station for Venice, which is on the lagoon, and it's the one that most visitors want. So when you're booking your tickets, make sure you know exactly where you need to get to. And of course, we've got an article listing the main train stations in Italy. So for each of those big cities, that will pop into the show notes so you don't get caught out. There are various regional train companies that you'll notice, but most of the services are run by Trenitalia. And these are slower services and they make a lot more stops. This is where you'll get the scenic views too, as the Frecce, the fast speed trains, go up to 300 kilometres an hour, which is amazing. But because of that, you can't see too much out the window at that speed, as you can imagine. So if you're wanting to book in advance for the intercity trips, that is a good idea. You can make some decent savings, and I would say around 6 to 8 weeks in advance is fine. And we do have a lot of people try and book 6 months plus out, but it's just not worth it because some of the services might not be listed, and it just gets frustrating because you can't find what you're looking for. So 6 to 8 weeks is fine. Things aren't really going to sell out. There's so many services. I think, the main services that are running between Rome and Florence and Rome and Naples are probably the main ones that people will use. And look, there's like 20, 30 services a day. So really don't need to book too far in advance. Now, if you're traveling onto a regional destination, so if you're going from Rome to Lucca in Tuscany, you can book the full trip in advance and keep your tickets on the app. So in this case, Rome to Lucca, you will go from Rome to Florence first and then you'll change to a regional train. In this case, it's good to book your tickets for the full journey in advance so you've got, a nice flow and everything's in the one spot. I think it's super easy. You can do that online. Okay, and the next thing I want to talk about is which seat class to book. So on intercity trains, I always book the business class or above, as it's really not much more than second class, maybe a few extra euros. And it's a little bit more comfortable and there's more space for luggage. And we'll talk about luggage a little bit more in a bit. That's important because if you have a little bit more space for luggage, it's just makes things a little bit less stressful because, you've got somewhere safe to put it. Now, you will get an allocated seat on the intercity trains and you can generally choose which seat you get when you make your booking. But do remember that on regional trains, there is no allocated seating. So that's really important. So you're not going to get a seat number for the regional train. That's because it's just really a commuter train it's probably around maybe 1.5 hours. So there's not really any need for anyone to have an allocated seat. You can buy your regional train tickets at the station and there's no need to book in advance. If you do, though, purchase them at the train station and you have a paper ticket, you must validate the ticket at the platform where there's a little machine or else it's not valid and then you'll risk a fine. And trust me, this happens all the time because people think because they've got their ticket, it automatically means that they pay for their ticket and it's valid. But basically those tickets need a timestamp on them and that's what the machine gives you. And you really don't want that fine because it can be 200 to 300 euros on the spot. And you know what you can do with that 200 to 300 euros? You can spend a lovely couple of days at a beach club for that. So just be a little bit prepared and make sure if you're buying those paper tickets that you do validate them at the train station. Like I mentioned, if you're doing one of those longer trips, say from like Rome to Lucca, you can book the full trip in advance on the app and just keep your tickets on the app. So that can be a little bit easier. Now, I did want to have a little mention about rail passes because a lot of people think, oh, this is really great. I'll have a rail pass and I can just use it and travel around on the trains willy-nilly, but sadly not. And it's generally not worth the pass in Italy. There is such a thing as a Eurail pass. So if you're going around Europe, people sometimes think that that's a really good idea. But in Italy, what happens is that you do need to book a seat on the train that you want to go on with the Eurail pass, and you'll pay an additional fee for your allocated seat on top of the pass. So it really makes the whole thing a little bit overly complicated and it just is adding extra cost as well, which what's the point is what I say. So you're better off looking at your point-to-point journeys and paying for it that way. Okay, so now we've got our bookings done. And you know what? I think it's also worthwhile. Just when you're booking, you get the option to have a flexible or non flexible or slightly flexible fare. And for some reason on that Bolzano trip, I decided to not do the cheapest one, which doesn't have any flexibility. And it was just a really good thing that I didn't do that one because I did actually book the wrong date. Whoops. and I needed to change the date to a week after. So it was really easy. I just went in, I think I booked those ones on Omeo and just went in and changed the date, and it was super easy. So there's a class of ticket where you can make changes at any time up until departure, which is actually quite handy sometimes. Okay, so now you have your tickets. We're going to talk about what happens when you get to the train station because I think that's the next thing that makes people a little anxious when they're in Italy is navigating the train stations. So here's a few things to remember. First of all, I think get there early, 20 to 30 minutes in advance is plenty of time to get your bearings and make your way to the correct platform with some time spare to grab a snack. Granted, I am not one of those people running through airports or train stations like in the Home Alone movies. I like to have plenty of time up my sleeve. I have had to run through an airport with my name being called one time, and I have to say I did feel slightly humiliated. Now, obviously, no one knew that it was me being called, but hey, I just rather avoid it. So I do like to get there a little bit early. And another thing is that no one is calling your name at the train station. If you miss your train, you'll need to get on the next one. No one's calling you to say, hey, you need to be at the platform. It's all on you, so you need to pay attention. Roma Termini and Milano Centrale are the biggest train stations in Italy, but they're quite well marked and pretty easy to get around. You just follow the signs, which are generally in both Italian and English, so it's really quite straightforward. Bologna is probably the most confusing station that I've been to, as there is an underground section for intercity trains. But again, if you give yourself some time, it's going to be fine. You'll find out where to go, and there's people to help. At the train station, you need to look for the big blackboard, which is very much like at an airport, which says partenze, which means departures. It's also going to say departures, so you'll find it fairly easy. So you need to look for the train number that is on your ticket and look for the binario or platform that is where your train is departing from. Now, this is really important. Don't make the mistake of looking for your destination, as the departures board is going to show the city that's the final destination for your train. As an example, trains from Rome to Florence often continue on to Bologna and Venice, for example. So the final destination will show Venice. And you don't want to be looking for Florence because Florence is not going to be showing on that board. So you need to look for the train number. And the platform for your train is usually available 5 to 10 minutes before departure. So you make your way there. And if you're travelling on an intercity service, look for the carrozza or carriage where your allocated seat is. And that'll be printed or on the app for your ticket. It's best to board on the right carriage so you don't have to drag your luggage through the train. It's really much more convenient and just more efficient for everyone if you get on at the right carriage. And it's all very straightforward. And like 9 times out of 10, this is exactly what's going to happen. You'll find the platform about 5 to 10 minutes before departure. You go to the platform, you find your carriage, and then you get on the train. But sometimes there is a last-minute change to your train platform. And if you see all the people on the platform rushing back towards the station, that's usually a dead giveaway that the platform has changed. So do keep an eye on things so you can move if you need to. And this actually happened to us when we went to Bolzano and the train moved to the next platform across. I think we just were paying attention because everyone just started going back on towards the train station, and it was pretty obvious that something was up. So I had another look at the board, and sure enough, the platform had changed. Now, we have got to the train platform. We found our carriage. We're getting on the train with our luggage. I don't know how many times I need to say this, but I'm going to say it again. When you're taking luggage to Italy, it is really very best to take the small to medium-sized cases so that you can manage them easily in the trains, in cars, whichever way you're travelling around, unless you are taking a private car and there's plenty of room for huge luggage. And by the private car, I mean someone's driving you. You just need to take a small to medium luggage. And, I took the medium-sized case for 6 weeks, and I'm not one of these carry-on only people, I'd like to have a medium case, and it works fine. So there is limited space on each intercity carriage of the trains. And so remember that the trains are generally used by Italians on commuter journeys, and they aren't really designed for people like us on long vacations. So again, you can fit a medium case in the overhead compartment if you're strong enough to lift it, or you can get some help. There is a separate area for luggage on the trains, and it's very small. You wouldn't want the whole carriage to be having medium-sized luggage. While there is a space on those intercity trains, there isn't a dedicated space for luggage on the regional trains. So in this case, you're going to need to keep it close by you and keep a good, strong eye on it. So it's easy. You can either stand or you find a seat where you can stow your luggage. So you just have to work that out. And normally they're not very long journeys, so it's okay. So I think with luggage as well, just remember, everyone's friendly. Most people are friendly, and there's going to be people that are going to help you. I always have someone help me, if I'm looking like I'm struggling. And it's either a fellow traveller or it's a local that is just feeling sorry for you, or they're realising that no one's getting on the train until you've actually moved your luggage. But I did want to say one thing. Remember, when we're traveling, it does get stressful, but let's make sure that we do help people. Not everyone has the benefit of hearing this podcast and knowing that they can't bring the big luggage, okay? So one time, a couple of years ago, my friend and I witnessed some really ugly behaviour travelling from Naples to Rome, and unfortunately, it was some English-speaking tourists that were yelling at some other tourists to move their luggage. And you know what? They didn't offer any help. They were literally just yelling at them. And you know what? Yelling is a base response, and it's the lowest form of communication, in my opinion. So the least of these people could do, because I could tell, they were frustrated, and I probably would have been frustrated too. But I mean, they could have helped. And in the end, my friend and I got up off our seat and we went and helped these people so that they could stow their luggage safely and get on with their journey. So I was really pretty shocked that people would be yelling at other fellow travellers, because that's not what anyone wants on their journey, is it? Anyway, safety, I've never had a problem, and I always lock my luggage with an inbuilt lock. But if you do want a bit of extra security, you can use one of those bike cable locks that you can buy. It might be a good idea to have one of those if you're on the regional trains and you want to have a little bit of a nap, but I haven't had a problem. There we go. We've got the luggage on board, and now we're ready to relax. You can relax. You can connect to the free Wi-Fi on board the intercity trains, or you can do what I do and listen into other people's conversations. Sorry, not sorry, but I am a bit nosy and I can't help it. And some people are really, really loud. And actually last year I was sitting next to Conan O'Brien and his family, who were travelling from Florence to Rome. And I could tell you a thing or two, but I won't. That's one for a glass of wine or two if you happen to see me out and about in Italy one day. Now, if you are in first or business class, you will get a snack and the drinks cart will come around. It's not cocktail season, unfortunately. It's a coffee or, like a water or a juice or something like that. It's pretty unexciting. So I do suggest picking up snacks and eating at the train station, where there are generally some pretty good options. Again, my friend and I had a lovely tagliere, which has got cheese and salami and a glass of Prosecco in Naples. It's really, really civilised. And in Milan and Rome, they have Mercato Centrale, which has lots and lots of options. So don't worry, folks, this is Italy. You will not go hungry. So you've got your snack, you've got your drink, you're on board, and all you need to do now is relax and enjoy the ride. The conductor will come around and check your tickets. You just need to show them once in your app if you've got the app with you, and then you just get on with whatever you are doing. Personally, I find the bathroom situation pretty gross, so I do avoid those, but otherwise everything is comfortable. You'll have a drop-down table or a shared table between four, and you can either have a snooze or catch up on some emails. You do need to keep an eye on the train's progress, though, because you'll want to start getting ready to get off the train about 5 to 10 minutes prior to arriving at your destination. If the train has an onward journey, it doesn't stop for long, so you do need to be ready to get off as soon as it arrives at your destination. Once you're off the train, the best news is that you're there, right in the middle of where you want to go. There's no waiting around for your luggage. You just walk and find the taxi or walk onto your accommodation, and I just love it. It's so easy and very relaxing, in fact. But there is one thing that's not so relaxing, and it does sort of strike a little bit of fear into people. But I want to have a chat about this because it's actually not as big a drama as what it sounds like. And this is the reality of Italy, that they do have some strikes, especially transport strikes. And you may have heard about them. And yes, they do happen regularly in Italy. It is a pain, but before you panic, the first thing to know is that strikes are announced well in advance, so a minimum of 10 days. So you can really plan around those dates. And I guess that's another good reason not to book too far in advance and to have a bit of a flexible ticket. You'll find the strike information on the Ministry of Infrastructure and Transport website, and we've got a detailed explanation of the strike process on our website, which of course we'll put it into the show notes. So even if there is a strike, the main intercity services have options thanks to a guaranteed services policy that ensures trains run at peak times, the intercity trains. There's always an option. But if you must travel on a strike day, it is best to prepare yourself with a backup option. And I think my best advice would be to have a look at Flixbus, which is very fast and reliable bus services. And they're really modern. They've got onboard Wi-Fi and a bathroom, and they're very reasonably priced. So if you have that up your sleeve and you know that that's an option, you won't be fluffing around trying to find something else as a backup. If you're doing that at the last minute, it can be a little bit stressful, but I think Flixbus is an excellent alternative if you need to get somewhere pretty quickly, like an airport or something like that. So in a strike situation, you'll also be able to get help with your tickets from whoever you booked with, and they should send you a notification and help you rebook in advance. So like I said, they have to announce the strikes very far in advance, so you'll be getting that notification pretty soon. Now, one of the advantages of booking with Trenitalia or Italo is that they will have an office at the station generally. But you know what? That's going to be at capacity, of course, because people will want to get help from someone in person. And so in that scenario, it may actually be quicker to sort it out online. I think it depends on, how urgent things are and what you want to do, but you shouldn't have a last minute problem. There may be a last minute problem if there's been some sort of problem with the track or something like that. But from a strike perspective, you're not really going to have these last minute problems. So depending on your trip insurance, and I highly recommend that you do invest in that, and the cost of your ticket, sometimes it does make sense just to cut your losses and claim on insurance later. I mean, everyone's different. For me, like I said, call me lazy, but I just think that sometimes it's just easier to sort things out later and get on with your journey or cut your losses, because 20 or 30 euros versus trying to spend 3 hours to work it out. I know which I prefer. So the key message here is really to be prepared. Hey, and I mentioned our new app at the start of the show. Well, once it's up and running, we plan to send relevant strike updates to those of you who are in Italy via the app, so you're fully prepared and ready to reorganise legs of your travel if required. I really, really want this app to be useful in many different ways, and I think this is one way that we can help travellers while they're in Italy, because you're probably not thinking, oh, do I need to check the strike schedule? It's just one simple way that we can help. So there is more information on the app at untolditaly.com/app, and there'll be more on that later. Okay, so let's recap what we've covered today about trains. The key message is embrace this method of travel. You're going to love it, and it's a lot more relaxing than driving and trying to find parking spots and navigating historic zones and all of those types of things. Do get organised. Make sure you book your tickets around 6 to 8 weeks in advance if you're taking the intercity trains. Do keep an eye out for strikes and adjust your plans if necessary. Arrive at the station with plenty of time to spare, grab some snacks, make your way to the right platform and carriage, being sure to take note of your train number. Board the train and store your luggage and relax until it's time to get off. Perfetto. Honestly, I'm yet to meet anyone who doesn't prefer travelling by train, especially between major cities in Italy and Europe. I'm sure once you get the hang of it, which will be very quickly, you're going to love it too. We do have in-depth articles that I mentioned on all things train travel in Italy, including a specific one about strikes, which we'll add to the show notes with the full episode transcript to untolditaly.com/264 for episode number 264. Grazie mille. Thank you for tuning in, and in particular to those of you who have sent such lovely reviews and messages lately. We truly appreciate it, and we do hope you enjoyed today's show. That's all for today. Next week, we're heading down south to Calabria and Cilento to revisit a trip that our listener Caroline took with her family. But until then, it's ciao for now. The Untold Italy podcast is an independent production. Podcast editing, audio production, and website development by Mark Hatter, production assistance and content writing by the other Katy Clarke. Yes, there are two of us. For more information about Untold Italy, please visit untolditaly.com.